Michael Cordani. I live in Mauritius since 15 years. I have co-founded and I'm the managing director of an incubator named the Plage Factory, where we incubate tech for good startups from Mauritius, but not all are Mauritian. They can come from Africa, will come from African startups. And then we also co-founded an angel investor group named Mo Angels, Mauritius Angels, that do the same for the early stage financing. We do finance with our members startups in Mauritius and startups in Africa, actually more in Africa than from Mauritius. Okay, so the usual suspect, I'd say, one, strong people and ideally teams, so people who are really committed to doing the necessary work, that have the capabilities, either directly or shortly with partnerships typically, so they can do it, they have the potential, and when we see that potential and when we feel we can help them put together a viable business model, then that's what we call incubation in a nutshell. We bring them from project to proper startup creation, and then to the emerging funding. And that's the critical path. They need to be investor ready, and angels are no fools. And the fools, families and friends are before that, for the prototyping typically. And we really help them get to that stage. Now, angel investors from our group, they act as professionals. We do due diligence, so we really expect the startups to be ready, to have a solid pitch, and to be capable of explaining the proper use of funds. So that's a long journey. It takes 1 to 2 years typically, and it's just the beginning, because that's the bootstrapping. That's where then they can reach the real venture capitalists. In Mauritius, we have a small country and a small ecosystem, so we felt at this stage it's just the beginning for verticalization, if you can say so. So in our case, we decided to embrace the Tech for Good umbrella, where you can have agri-tech, civic tech, and other things like fancy education and agriculture and these kind of topics. But frankly, we take startups as they are. If we find a solid project, I like to say they need to try to solve meaningful problems with intelligent solutions. So not just making money, be a startup or try to be the new Zuckerberg, but really do something. And what I like in Africa and in Mauritius, that the young people in particular, that's their mindset usually. They really want to solve something, do something. The observation is that it comes from two different angles. One, tech is the way to have better productivity in innovation. So it's the means to an end. You're better, faster, cheaper. So it's a competitive advantage. It's not a means for an end. Now you have also the tech sector, and that investors love, because typically in the platform business you can have that winner takes all syndrome. That particularly I hate personally, and I heard that comment that it should not be the game. So I think this is why people looking for returns, short returns, they prefer these kinds of models. It seems easier to start, easier to scale globally. So from a pure selfish return perspective, it makes a lot of sense to put your priority in this. But it's not the only thing. You can innovate in many ways, not just by using tech. I'm new to the game, and I feel ashamed. I should have joined earlier. I mean that. I'm very impressed by the network, the intention, the design, everything, more or less. I think it's very good. That's the way to go, to create capacity in the longer term and have very pragmatic solutions and means and tools and stuff you can use as a hub in the short term, but there is a long-term play as well. The governance was part of the annual meeting, and the governance discussion of how to represent people, overcome the natural oversize of certain countries. These topics are tricky. I have attended the physical workshop that was extremely beneficial to me, even transformational, I think. I will revisit completely the way I approach the hub itself, the way to grow, the way to model it, and to approach institutions to get funding. If the angle is there is a lot of money poured in the ecosystem to stimulate the appetite for startup creation and youth, etc. Alors, is it wastage or is it a form of education and fostering entrepreneurial spirit. If you look at that angle, perhaps it's not wasted. If you look at the output in the form of true startups, like a scalable business model with people who has ambition, will raise funds, etc., it can be seen as wastage. So in my opinion, actually in Mauritius, that's the way I would see things. We focus on startups, true startups. With that, you have to be super selective. Not everybody can be a startup. If you look at the journeys, obviously you need probably education, capabilities, not just funding, many things. So we can support and help the rare individuals that are capable of doing this, giving them a chance. Perhaps, and I heard it was a debate about what is a startup, what is just a creation of an activity. And for me, the line is very clear. If you can't attract investors, burn capital to grow fast, it doesn't mean be a global platform and the winner takes all, but there's a very clean line between the rest and these startups. So first, good to remind myself and everybody about the design intent that I find brilliant. It's the name it says it all. Catalytic is a form of an accelerator of a process that happens normally when a startup pitches successfully to investors, to angel investors. That's, as I said, it's a tough one for startups. We can help, facilitate, prepare, etc. But when you go there, except if you have an exceptional entrepreneurial and business model, or if you are lucky enough to have the network, or if you have that particular idea that people will think they must invest in, or if you're in Nigeria, then you will not get a lot of money. You will get perhaps $20K to $200K in that range. That is good for 1 year of development, typically, creating a new version of the platform, but basically start to get the traction commercially. And that's a necessary path. With the Catalytic Fund, the way it will work is that you raise a bootstrapping amount of money, typically 20K to 100K, and then you will get an accelerator, because as a startup you get 2 or 3 times more in the form of grants, so it's non-diluting, which is ideal for the startup. And there are just 2 conditions. One, not being left alone, so some form of control and support from the hubs, and same from the angel group. So basically it's a tripartite game here that Catalytic is organizing, and it's really brilliant because angel investors will know that if they put 1, the startup get 2 in addition, so it multiplies their effect. The hub works hard to bring startups, hubs like us who do true startups, investor-ready people. You know that basically all your efforts are rewarded. Plus, I learned, and I was very happy to learn that the hub is compensated for that there is a bit of money coming from the whole process to the hub, which I think is fair and fine, and that's very encouraging. It makes our commitment to startup even more beneficial. We say we will bring you from project to fundraising in 2 steps: incubation, that's prototyping and starting to get early stage users, early users, early adopters, and then acceleration, which in concrete terms means getting clients, a little bit of revenue, and demonstrating the viability of your solution in the market. There, the angels play. Hey, it's a journey. I never had plans for career plans, but basically I've always been in special projects when I worked for big corporations. I've been 17 years at Microsoft, and I've been always involved in kind of internal startup stuff. So I think that more or less my temperament to innovate and create solutions. So that's one. But being active specifically in the ecosystem, that's new. I was brought by one of my co-founders who wanted to establish a, let's call that an incubator with the government in Mauritius. The ministries preferred not to do what we proposed, but to instead create a scheme that's called the National SME Incubator Scheme. And it's basically a matching grant in the form of the accredited incubators. So when you are an accredited incubator, when you submit a project, a startup project, then they can decide to match part of what you invest in the startup. So we are supported by the government. Now I'm part in that new game. I enjoyed working with entrepreneurs. That's very stimulating. I enjoy as well building that hub in a consistent way. I would love to have a blueprint for what we do to create some form of a franchise across Africa. What I heard this week comforts me that we are a bit special because the way we work is very much qualitative, not quantitative. So perhaps it's a difficulty to attract funds because I can exhibit big numbers, but we want to make role models. We want to make successful startups that raise funds and demonstrate that it's possible. And I believe the model makes sense aside with the other models, and that will be the next step.